Good day, all. So we're now on to episode 21 of my Doctor Who series overview, and today we're starting with a story that many people love to hate. Although I've always kind of liked this story, but I know I'm definitely in the minority. So here we have the Horns of Nimon, and those are the Nimons right there. Now I will admit, probably not one of the better Doctor Who monster costumes, but whatever. And one thing that I actually like about this is it actually co-stars the late Graham Cronin, who you might remember from Very Peculiar Practice in the late 80s, Waiting for God in the 1990s. Peculiar Practice, actually, that starred Peter Davison. I don't know if you're looking for other things that Peter Davison did, and he passed away. Actually, I think not long after he recorded the commentary for this, because I know he had passed away by the time the DVD came out. But anyway, so here we have Horns of the Nimon. Love it or hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I enjoy watching it, so there. Now we're on to the famous Lost story. This was to be the six-part climax to what had been a rather problematic season of Doctor Who. Before John Nathan Turner took over for most of Tom Baker's run, actually I think all of Tom Baker's run, they typically finished off the series with a six-parter. And this was to be the six-part story for Tom Baker's second to last season, but unfortunately due to strikes, because, I don't know, the BBC was always on strike in the late 70s, but because of a strike, the story wasn't finished. All the location sequences had been finished, and about a third of the studio shots had been finished. Then they found themselves locked out of the studio due to the strike. And when the strike was over, the BBC, looking to cut costs, cut a bunch of programs because of time and budgets and all that. And Doctor Who Shada ended up being one of the stories on the chopping block and was never finished, which is a shame, because even in its uncompleted state, this is still one of my favorite Doctor Who stories altogether. This particular one also, it includes, for the missing scenes, you have Tom Baker from 1993, so 20 years ago, or kind of just briefly describing what happens in between the scenes. It also has a Big Finish version, a Big Finish audio version of Shada that was produced back in 2003 as part of the set. And so there you go. One thing I should also say, this is a 3-disc set, one of actually only 3. I think the only other 3 set was the War Games for individual stories, but this one also includes More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS. So we're looking back on Doctor Who's 30th anniversary kind of celebration 20 years later, compared to... it obviously wasn't the event that the 50th turned out to be, because Doctor Who had been kind of in the, I don't know, television science fiction wilderness, whatever you want to call it, for a while. This was 93. It had been axed in 1990. The last series of the original, or the last season of the original series was 1989, so... yeah, it was kind of out of the public consciousness by that point. Okay, and then we head on to the Leisure Hive, which saw probably the biggest individual change in between seasons in Doctor Who's history. John Nathan Turner had come in, and he would actually remain as Doctor Who's producer until the show's cancellation 9 years later. Also, for this particular season, Barry Letts came back in as executive producer to kind of, I guess, oversee the production for one season. Then John Nathan Turner just did it by himself after that. But the Leisure Hive. So here we see the comedy toned down, what they called the scientification of Doctor Who. We see the end of the time tunnel. And yes, Shada would have been the last story to feature the time tunnel and the diamond logo. Here we've got kind of a sort of a more disco type tube logo and remix music, which actually I've always liked Peter Howell's version of the Doctor Who theme song, but it doesn't have sort of the originality and the otherworldness of the previous version, which had been remixed a few times but had been used up until this season. And Tom Baker gets a new costume and all that, and longer scarf and so forth. So yeah, so here we have the Leisure Hive, the older release. I think this was 2005, if I remember correctly. And it actually gives you some pretty cool features explaining, how they changed the show, some stuff on making the new theme or the new titles and so forth. So it's pretty cool. And then we have Meglos, also known as the story where Tom Baker turns into a cactus for a portion of the episode. I think many people consider this possibly the weakest story of Tom Baker's last season. Like I said, it's not necessarily one of my favorites, but it's still watchable and enjoyable. And especially when you compare this to stories that have come the season before, both the Leisure Hive and Meglos just show stylistically how the show had just changed completely. But anyway, so that is the end of part 21. So as always, everyone, I will see you very soon. Thank you for watching and have yourselves a wonderful day.